The agenda, we're good, so the agenda's all good. Then if I could have County Executive Ziegelbauer come up to the podium, and we do have Mrs. Alpert out in the audience. Kathy, if you want to come on up, that'd be great. As we know, several months ago, a former county board supervisor and local attorney and very good friend of law of ours, Steve Alpert, passed away. And in keeping with the tradition, as the county executive allowed or had the flag at the courthouse at half-mast, and we have a proclamation commemorating his life. So, Kathy, bear with me. I'll read this, and you feel free to say a few words. I have a proclamation commemorating the life and service of Stephen R. Alpert. Whereas Stephen L. Alpert, being born on October 17, 1948, was a family man and devoted husband for 40 years, a distinguished attorney who grew a successful law practice in the Alpert and Fellows law firm, and left a legacy of his craftsmanship after giving nature throughout Manitowoc County, and he passed away on November 3, 2017. And whereas Stephen R. Alpert loved politics and was active in local government, he first served as a municipal judge in Manitowoc and past president of the Manitowoc County Bar Association and Rotary Club, was a member of the City of Manitowoc Planning Commission, and was a county board supervisor, which included service on the Personnel Committee and the Public Property and County Institutions Committee. And whereas Stephen R. Alpert was active in the community, he was an active member of the Anshe Poale Zedek Synagogue, served on numerous community boards and organizations, including the Manitowoc County Ice Center, Aquatic Center, Public Library, and the formation of the Haven Homeless Shelter, and was incorporator of the first Indo-Chinese MMA in Wisconsin, and was a member of the Isaac Walton League and the Manitowoc Elks Lodge. And whereas Stephen R. Alpert was a strong leader who served the citizens of Manitowoc County in many capacities and contributed countless hours to improve the quality of life for all. Now therefore, we, Bob Ziegelbauer, County Executive, and Jim Bry, Manitowoc County Board Chair, along with the Manitowoc County Board of Supervisors, hereby commemorates the life and service of Stephen R. Alpert and expresses their condolences to the Alpert family, dated the 16th day of January 2018.
I just wanted to thank you very much for taking your time this evening to commemorate the life and service of my late husband. He was a very generous and charitable man, and he loved Manitowoc, was a lifelong resident except for the years of his education, and always wanted to do what was best for Manitowoc, and why that was the reason for his interest in service, as is yours. And I just want to thank you. He would be honored to know that your words of kindness and your thoughts. Thank you very much.
Next up on our public comment, we have Chrisma Rush, who is going to give a presentation on the Recovery Resource and Drop-In Center. I first met Chrisma several months ago. I'm her alderman and county board supervisor, and she had called me to talk about a program she's interested in creating here in Manitowoc County, and it's come into fruition, and I thought this would be a great opportunity to give a presentation in front of the county board. And Chrisma, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Jim. I appreciate that. All right, so I'm Chrisma Rush, and I have been working at Lakeshore CAP actually for the last 5 years, mostly in juvenile justice and now currently with youth as a student success advocate. I was recently hired on by WRCO, which is Wisconsin Recovery Community Organization. They've agreed to be the parent organization for the Recovery Drop-In Center. So with that said, I'd like to tell you a little bit of the history of, how I got where we're at now. And I myself am somebody in long-term recovery for the last 12 years, which for me means I haven't had a drop or a drug since October 22nd, 2005. And so I'm very passionate about bringing a face and a voice to recovery because there's lots of us out there, and we've been taught to not talk about it because we've been taught to be anonymous. And so we've had lots of really great education and awareness events over the last few years, which I've had the privilege of being in those circles and being part of the planning. And I believe that our community is ready for another story that goes along with addiction, and that is recovery. And it does happen, and there are resources out there, but Manitowoc needs more of them. And so what happened back in June 31st, we lost the funding for the Manitowoc County Youth Diversion Program. And my other position was in the schools, so you can imagine all of a sudden I had a lot of time on my hands, and I don't do well with a lot of time on my hands. I'm in human service work, so I found myself doing this like every single night, spending time on my phone trying to figure out what I needed next, what worldly Western certificate, degree, training did I need in order for me to continue to serve the community that I really care about. And so I debated back and forth between becoming an AODA counselor, a mental health counselor. But there were also these other really holistic pieces to recovery that are really important to me that I'm passionate about. Things like spirituality and nutrition and meditation and yoga, about wellness, like treating the whole person, right? Not just the one aspect. And so I found myself trying to figure out, like, how could I put that all together? And what I came across was this toolkit. It's called Recovery Community Organization Toolkit, and this is from our federal advocacy group, Faces and Voices of Recovery out of Washington. And this toolkit basically gives you an idea of the core principles and the lessons learned from other recovery community organizations throughout the United States. And I printed it off, and I started to walk around with it and meet with people that I had met over the last 8 years working in human services that could possibly be in a better position that could make it happen. Because what came to mind is that what I was hoping Manitowoc could become was a recovery-oriented community. I didn't necessarily know exactly what that meant, but I know that we need it. And then I had this thought that if we did that, we'd open up our community for a lot of federal funding. I didn't know that either, but I'm a good salesperson. So I added that in with my pitch. And as I started meeting with people, there was a lot of really great ideas. Some people, tried to get me to participate in their organizations. And I had one individual, a director, say, hey, I do have an idea that aligns with this toolkit you're talking about, and it's a recovery center, and I think you'd be really good at directing it. And I said, yeah, no. I said I work in nonprofits and I work with nonprofits, but I don't lead them. I don't have that skill set. So then I got distracted with this project. And this project is also a recovery story. That man that I married on October 14th, we started using very young. We were teenagers, Generation X, terrorizing this town. We were probably one of those kids that you guys hated. Darn kids. That was us. And the gift is my husband will be celebrating 6 years clean next month. So we dated again in our 20s, which was a train wreck. That was the time that I had to choose to get clean, and he wasn't ready. But when he was, we got back together. So that was my next project that took 2.5 months of my life. And as soon as I landed from that, I went right back to obsessing about, like, how am I going to figure this out? How am I going to put these Eastern kind of Western things all together and create something or be something or be of service? Unfortunately, I do work the steps of a 12-step program, and this is my favorite step. It's the 11th step, and the reason it's my favorite step is because I love the relationship with my higher power, which I choose to call God. And I believe and have faith in that, bigger, greater, loving, more than I. And what I realize, so the 11th step is, as you can read through prayer and meditation, we improve our conscious contact with God as we understand and praying for the knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. And that's when it hit me. I wasn't going to figure it out. And I had to stop obsessing, and I had to put my phone down at night, and I had to stop looking at all the college emails, and I had to just let, Him in. And let Him fill that space. And so I did that. And I ended up back at this toolkit. And I was like, all right, this time I started to read it. And I started to internalize the words, and I realized it wasn't something outside of me that I needed to go find. I was reading the principles, and I was reading the lessons, and I was like, oh wow, this is my journey. This is kind of how I'm wired now. Core principles like honoring all paths to recovery, accountability to the recovery community. So that's about system changes. That's about taking into consideration what's wrong here and how do we fill those gaps and create services. How do we problem solve through that? And then there's the authenticity of recovery, which means RCOs, recovery community organizations, are made up of individuals in long-term recovery and or family members who have family members that struggle with substance use disorder. So, realizing that, it was the last weekend of October. It was a big gathering. We had some friends of ours that stood up in our wedding. We're moving to North Carolina. And I went home that night. It was pretty late, and I decided I was going to do this meditation, and it was a walk with my higher power and what that purpose would be, right? And I did that, and it was like a half hour long. And in the process of that, I could have what I could recognize, or what I've called kind of a spiritual download. It was like a claircognizance experience, more than just a vision. I had everything from calendar of events to newsletters to MOUs to project narratives for grants. And I kind of sat up from this experience and I realized, I guess, that I am the person for this recovery center. And so it was pretty quick that I decided that since I didn't think I had the skill set, and this recovery community organization toolkit says, it's one of the lessons learned, is like do one or two things and do them really well. That I can do. But then I need to create a really good team that complements the things that I don't do well. So that's my steering committee. And that's what I've been working with, guiding me the last few months. So the idea of the recovery community and drop-in center, which we have identified or termed Lighthouse Recovery Community Center. Eventually what we'd like to do is hub more meetings. More importantly, we want to hub the resource, because the linkage and the navigation to recovery support services is difficult, to say the least. To get into treatment or to get services, there's lots of barriers. And what we want to do is we want to work to get into a system where that's not happening. So for example, these are the groups that we want to make sure that we're incorporating. We have a lot of the anonymous groups. We want mental health, grief group. Those are groups that are already happening. I just want to really quick, Painting Pathways Clubhouse was the first organization that I went to have this discussion with to get their blessings, because I didn't want people to think that there was an overlap of services or why are we doing things differently. Clubhouse has a very strict criteria on what they can do and how they run. What we find is that we overlap and we can do wraparound care with these individuals, so we have a partnership. So for example, the bipolar depression group, Donna holds that from Encourage over at First Presbyterian Church. I'm not going to go over there and say, hey Donna, can you come to our center? But I do want your contact information, and will you go on our calendar of events so people know what that resource is? That's initially really what we want to do, right? To be like that linkage for individuals coming through, including family members. So we do have Naranon that is new and started here in the community at Connections Church on Tuesday evenings. Actually, it's going on right now. Al-Anon has been a long-standing support for individual or family members in the community. We want to have a parent support group, Family Anonymous. Smart Recovery is an alternative recovery program, non-12-step, and Wellbriety is a Native American 12 steps to recovery. So I have, with the help of, again, my wonderful steering committee, a 5-year, 3-phase plan. The drop-in center is phase 1. And that's 2018, that's our first year. That's what we want to make sure that we get open, and because we believe it'll have the greatest impact. The drop-in center is, we are doing a training. Worko has trainers for becoming recovery coaches. And we're holding training the first 2 weeks of February. And I'm currently raising the funds to get 8 recovery coaches trained. So we will, and then we will contract with them, and they will be volunteering at the recovery center. Myself included will be trained. So there'll always be a recovery coach on staff. Recovery coaching is, we're kind of at the cusp of like like the recovery movement at this point. And on the East Coast, they can't hire recovery coaches fast enough in the clinical setting. The amount of experience that they bring with their lived experience and the amount of integrity that they have with their documentation is profound. And peer-to-peer support is the model of recovery that has the highest result for success. So we hopefully have a pool table coming. We do have a location that is in the first floor of Lakeshore CAP, the old Head Start building, the old Head Start classroom. So on one side we'll have the drop-in center where it'll be a social, safe place for individuals to go. The hours will be from noon till 7. And what those hours are the ones in between the morning and evening recovery meetings in the community. Eventually we'll expand on our activities, monthly dances, socials to celebrate anniversaries, open mic night, acoustic jam, family night, book clubs, and outreach road trips to other recovery events around the state. So here's the education pieces. This has a lot to do with partnerships and collaborations. I've met with most of the providers of these learning to live life on life's terms classes. That's what this education is about. So budgeting, relapse prevention, healthy relationships, anger management, life skills. Those are all currently running programs in our community, being run by other organizations who are willing to work with our population. Here's that part that I was racking my brain against, that we're going to include in the center, and we're going to make sure that we have these things, the education. So on the left side as you come in, there's a classroom that will be a meeting room as well as a wellness center. We are getting exercise equipment from the Y as they are remodeling, and we'll also have space to hold classes, yoga. So there's some things so I've coined the idea of finding your purpose or your calling feels a lot like coming home. All those scattered ideas that I couldn't figure out how to put together now fit under one roof. And I didn't figure it out. So direct services that the center will be providing are the recovery coaches. That's the important piece, that we want to make sure that they have access at all times to come in and work in their recovery plan. Right now we're working with, I have subcommittees with organizations that are already serving our population. So Marco subcommittee, IOP subcommittee, drug court subcommittee. I'm pulling them to the table right now because their voice is important. They get to design it, and they're the ones talking about what do we need to troubleshoot, because they're the ones that know how to, to catch stuff. So currently they're helping us work on a policy that would make sure, like, what does it look like when someone comes in? Maybe they only get 7 days that they can come in before they work with a recovery coach. Maybe it's 14 days, but there's that idea of we're working with them to figure out what that looks like to make sure that this is the best working integrity-based facility we can make. So transportation is something that the recovery coaches can provide. And I have to speak to the public transport. We are right on the bus route, so I will be talking to the public transit services outside of us. There's 2 sober livings that are up and coming, 1 male and 1 female sober living. Also, there's another investor in the community that's been looking for housing to do the same thing. We're working with industries and companies that will work with us with a partnership with reentry programs. So individuals coming out of either treatment or incarceration that in these areas, construction, paraprofessional, and hospitality and services, that they'll be willing to hire with the idea that they are working on their recovery. Massage therapy is not. We have some individuals that work in holistic care that are willing to come and schedule, let's say they're there once a week, and individuals getting clean or getting sober, it's a lot easier to come in after a day's work, do 15 minutes, $1 a minute, and kind of building that reciprocity of self-care. A lot easier than going and spending a lot of money and investing a whole hour. So there's the partnerships that we have. I don't know if you can read them all, but I can pretty much, except for the Manitowoc Sheriff's Department. We do have a letter of support from the Manitowoc Police Department, and they are helping us with some of the funding for the recovery coach training. I still have to speak to Larry Lavina, but that won't be an issue. So anyways, besides that, those are the partners that we currently have. There's a couple more that I haven't added yet, and I'm sure there'll be more. So we're kicking off, we're setting the tone, we're busting out, whatever you want to say. That's why you have this in there. Next Monday evening, we are doing a film screening of The Anonymous People. The Anonymous People is about highlighting and talking about the recovery piece and kind of de-emphasizing the addiction piece. Because there's 22 million people struggling with substance use disorder, but guess what? There's more than 22 million of us recovering successfully, happily, living life. And this documentary really talks about the history and how we kind of got misled to what Anonymous really is. And really, we should be talking about our story. That's what empowers people. And what I'm working on with the recovery community is our language, right? So I don't come in here and say, oh, I'm a grateful recovering addict. I come in here and I say, hey, I'm somebody in long-term recovery. It sounds different, but it makes a difference. And that's what I mean. We want the focus to be on recovery. We want you to know about us. We want you to know, our stories of recovery. It's not so much what got us here. We all know that pain. We all know that story. I want to tell you what works and what has been working. Those are the stories and the faces that we want to highlight over the next few months as the center gets built. So, with that being said, I don't know what I'm at for time, but that's what's going on with the Lighthouse Recovery Center. Please, if you have any other questions, let me know. Hopefully you can make it to the event or just stay plugged in to what's going on with the recovery movement. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chrisma. Does anybody have any questions for Chrisma right now, if you're willing to answer anything right now? Okay. Thank you once again, and please keep us informed. Don't be afraid to keep us informed. And like you said, to try to attend an event. I know we're all busy people, but I think there's a lot of potential here, and it's more than potential. You've done a lot of the groundwork already, and I am proud of the way you've taken this bull by the horns, I guess, and worked with other organizations within the community. And I think everybody a little bit helps. And as we talked, I think from a person who came from an addiction setting, I think people are willing to listen to that and gravitate to that more. So I wish you nothing but the best and everything you're doing. So thank you. All right, now I'll just open it up to regular public comment. If there's anybody from the public wishing to speak to any matter germane to county government, please raise your hand and you'll be allowed approximately 3 minutes to speak on any issue germane to Manitowoc County government. Is there anybody wishing to speak this evening? Yes, Maura.
Mr. Chair, if I may, I have two questions.
Okay.
One is, what is the purpose of the timer?
So to inform people how much time you have so you can keep an eye on it so I don't have to yell down or scream down. So that's what it's for.
Angle this then so I can watch it?
I guess just continue on and it will, yeah. If you want to, yeah.
And the second thing, second question I have is that I noticed that the videos are not going up on the county board webpage, and I was wondering about that.
From my understanding, there's a problem with the way with our website, but I think they're working on it. So I guess hopefully in the near future we'll see what we can do.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Good evening. This spring, I will have lived in Manitowoc County for 30 years. During that time, I contributed to our county by assisting unemployed folks to find gainful employment, as well as serving on the Human Services Board and advocating for a single human services director. Along the way, I learned about county board supervisors and our county staff. As reveals trends. For example, in 2005, the county's average yield on its investments was 3.09%. But in 2016, it was only 0.39%. And in 2005, $7 million was available for spending at the county's discretion. In 2016, the unassigned fund balance plummeted to a mere $225,000. That's a razor edge error margin. So the work of the Finance Committee is especially important as we face difficult decisions. At the request of the Finance Committee, the comptroller and his staff have the skills to evaluate the most cost-effective way to meet the county's estimated repair costs for its roads and bridges, totaling approximately $23 million. Our existing borrowed debt, including principal and interest, is now $32 million. That amount is after taxpayers have paid $13 million in interest from 2006 through 2018. Manitowoc County is facing real challenges, and to meet them, I am reminded of our state's motto, forward, and I also am reminded of President Reagan's second inaugural address when he described the American sound as hopeful, big-hearted, idealistic, daring, decent, and fair. Let's sound off.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anybody else wishing to speak this evening? Anyone else wishing to speak this evening? And for a third and final time, anybody else wishing to speak? See none, I'll declare public comment closed. Communications, there's one shown on the agenda. There's no unfinished business from our, oh, I'm sorry, Supervisor Ballman.
Yeah.
To the communication, correct?
Correct. The communication sent out by the town of Schleswig is not correct. I went out there as a member of the Finance Committee to correct any things that they might have come up with, which the town chairman, the first question he asked me was an incorrect item. I can't remember what it is anymore, but I've asked them to redo their unapproved draft to say what I really did say. And the public comment that I made was, from what I heard from the 3 listening sessions we had and speaking to the Kiel mayor and city council and coming up with the proposal of splitting the tax 50-50, I've done considerable homework on this. I've figured out the mileage for each township, village, and city, what the county is responsible for and what they're responsible for. Pass this on to the Finance Committee. I made sure that the Schleswig Town Hall knew that this was just my proposal, that I wasn't speaking for the Finance Committee. So please disregard what's in there, and if you have any questions, give me a call. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your explanation, Supervisor Ballman. I mean, I've known you for 4 years, and you certainly have, everybody has their opinion on regards to everything in regards to this, and as I read those minutes, I was, I guess, disappointed from the town of Schleswig, because I know you didn't represent yourself that way, and a little disappointing, but this discussion will continue on, so thank you once again. If there's nothing else on that, we will move to, there's no unfinished business as I mentioned. We will go on to appointments by the county executive, and first up will be the appointment of an emergency management director. And the recommendation is for Travis Walk. A motion by Supervisor Benke, second by Supervisor Gauger to approve Travis as the new emergency management director. Any discussion on the motion? See none. All in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Travis, we do have Travis back here. If you'd like to give us a few words, that'd be great. Congratulations, first of all. It's funny, I got to know Travis a little bit when he was working with the Red Cross, and then even more involved when we were doing, I guess, the emergency management stuff when we were talking about the nuclear drill. So now, instead of just being a cohort, like, as the elected, we're still in charge. Just remember, no, But anyways, as you know, I grew up with Nancy Crowley's leadership. I mean, she ran that ship tight, and I know Jamie did a great job in his terms there. And Travis, I see you just doing the same thing as well. It'll be interesting, but please, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to steal your thunder here. I just.
That's all right. First of all, I wanted to thank County Exec Ziegelbauer and all of you for the appointment and the confirmation, and just kind of maybe a funny story going along with that and Nancy, but 17 years ago, I waltzed into Nancy Crowley's office with a letter from my principal, and the letter said, we think our student should participate in the nuclear drill because he's real interested in that kind of stuff. And of course, Nancy looked at the letter and she looked at me and she thought, and I believe she said this to me, she said, kids belong in school, not at nuclear drills. And Nancy and I, she came to like me and became a good mentor of mine, and we worked together for a number of years. And as Jim said, I went on to work for the Red Cross for 11 years, got a lot of great experience responding to literally hundreds of disasters here in Wisconsin and around the country. And I just can't express enough how excited I am to kind of take all that experience I've gained and bring it back home to the community that I've lived in my whole life through the Emergency Services Department. So I thank you much, and I look forward to working with all of you.
Thank you. We have one other appointment by the county executive for the ethics board to appoint one member to succeed Tom Musial for a 3-year term expiring February 28th, 2021, and the recommendation is for Tom Musial. It's a motion by Supervisor Dizak, second by Supervisor Hanson. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, all in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carried, and Tom is reappointed once again. Thank you very much on the appointments. Committee reports. We'll start off with Aging and Disability Resource Center Board. Supervisor Wagner is the chair.
I have no report, but the next meeting will be next week, Tuesday, the 23rd of January, at this site, the Heritage Center, starting at 10 with the Commission on Aging and followed by the ADRC. Thank you.
Any questions for Supervisor Wagner? Thank you very much. Board of Health. Supervisor Metzger is the chair.
I have no report, but we will be meeting February 8th at 5 p.m.
Any questions for Supervisor Metzger? Thank you very much. Criminal Justice Coordinating Council, Supervisor Falkowski is our representative there.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good evening. The meeting of the Manitowoc County Criminal Justice Coordinating Council was January 3rd. Mr. Lafta gave an update regarding the drug court and diversion programs. Drug court, while is working well, 2 recent candidates were rejected for the beginning of the program. This rejection demonstrated strict adherence to the requirements. Changes in 2018 with the testing protocol and provider will allow improvement for monitoring. The diversion program has had a slower start. Eligible candidates will be informed adequately so they will be considered their options more seriously. There has been an open invitation to community leaders to attend sessions for a broader understanding of these programs. Available resources to assist participants avoiding obstacles to succeed while in the programs has been identified. Lakeshore CAP Director Colleen Holm expressed that participants don't meet program requirements in the beginning, however, they could at later stages. So a strategy appropriate to the resource availability is evolving. The group meeting for pretrial services are still pursuing any issues beyond pretrial and determining if the system is operating effectively. Kevin Miller from Department of Corrections pointed out very low-risk individuals would like to see alternatives rather than probation. Concerns remaining about domestic violence offenders. It has also been noted that the regimen being used in the drug court can be effective with domestic violence offenders. Finally, the individuals currently on the executive committee were approved to keep presiding for the next term. The next CJCC meeting is March 7th, and the executive meeting is scheduled to be held on the 22nd. Thank you, that's my report.
Any questions for Supervisor Falkowski? Thank you very much. Expo Ice Center Board, Supervisor Kavanaugh is our representative there.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Expo Ice Center Board met Wednesday, January 3rd. We had election of officers. Jerry Vetting was re-elected chairman. We discussed fairest of the fair competition, and tentatively we have set April 15th as the time to have it probably at the UW Center. That was going to be checked out yet. We had a number of members that attended the state fairest or the state fairest convention down at Chula Vista from January 7th through the 10th. That was held. Discussion on, or a little update, I guess I'd have to say, on the dairy barn. We opened or checked the bids on 4 firms that had bid on this: Walters, Lester, and Clary Buildings, plus Valley Buildings out of Appleton, and they had the low bid, and that's the firm that did our multi-purpose building also. So we approved the low bid and recommended this to the Public Works Committee, and our next meeting then will be Wednesday, February 7th, and the low bid was $508,000, quite a difference from the other 3. And as I said, Valley Buildings out of Appleton area. That concludes my report.
Any questions for Supervisor Kavanaugh? Thank you very much. I jumped right over the executive committee. The only thing I have right now, I guess, is I was recently appointed to the Wisconsin Counties Association, not Resolutions Committee, but a planning committee, I guess, for the Wisconsin Counties Association Conference. And it's annually held generally in September, so I will be attending that meeting in February, early February. If you got any ideas of things you might want to see at the conference, I know we don't have the opportunity to send a lot of people, but if you still have ideas or still things to bring back, don't be afraid to contact me, and I'll definitely talk about that. Finance Committee, Supervisor Hanson is the chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will turn it over to Supervisor Holzbach for a report on Monday's meeting, and then ask for maybe a minute or two when he's done. Thanks.
Sounds good. Thank you very much. Supervisor Holzbach.
Thank you, Supervisor Hanson and Chairman Bry. Finance Committee met last Monday, January 8th. We paid the bills for the months of December. Vouchers added up to just over $3.2 million. We approved 2 land lots in county ownership, tax deeded properties, the proceeds of which added up to more than what the county had invested, so that's always a good result. And then, as planned, we continued the discussion on potential sales tax. And we've been discussing, supervisors on the committee have been in discussions with the Department of Revenue, the Counties Association. We've looked at the most recent Attorney General's decision with regard to what the revenue can be expended on, and that decision is from the late 90s. So I guess I would let supervisors report if they'd like on what they, on their discussions, but we'll do future reports on this. We continue these discussions. One of the main questions is if we levy this tax, are we able to share with municipalities? As we know, Sheboygan passed a sales tax, and their plan and is being implemented to share with municipalities. The Department of Revenue saw no issue with that and no legal barriers. And the Department of Revenue is, of course, the state government entity that would actually be the collect the tax and convey it to the county. So the discussion continues. We still want to look at what other counties are doing and what's working best, and go from there. And that's what I have. Our next finance meeting is Monday, February 12th.
Thank you, Supervisor Holzbach. Does anybody have any questions for Supervisor Holzbach? Yep, I was going to go back. I'm sorry. Supervisor Hanson.
Just to dovetail on what Supervisor Holzbach said, thank you, nice job. Through this discussion, and we have, some people don't like it because it's taken too long, some people wish it would take longer, but I am honestly telling this county board that there are a group of people that don't want this, and there are a group of people that want it. And there are a bunch of people in the middle saying, what are you going to spend it on? And make sure you spend it right if you do it, and do we need it? So this is a good discussion happening in the county. And I think one of the good things that even though there was a little mix-up with Schleswig, okay, not easy to say if you don't live in Kiel, must be an accent you're born with, that was straightened out in a civil, nice way. And that's what we're hearing. I have to tell you that discussions with people for and against have been very civil and good about this. So as a supervisor, ask. Go and ask your constituents. If they call, have that discussion with them. But I can guarantee this board that if we don't have it, we don't have it. But if it happens, you are going to know, and the public is going to know where that money is going. It's their money, and if they decide they need it to fix things, we will spend it the way they want us to. But ask people, because people have been really good about this. That's all I got, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Supervisor Hanson. Were you done then, Supervisor Holzbach? I'm sorry?
I'm done.
Okay, no, it's okay. Supervisor Holzbach?
I'm done as well.
Along those lines, too, just I guess as an added thing, and I certainly agree with what was said here tonight. There's, as I've been saying, it's not a black and white issue, and it is good discussion. And I think it's time, I'm glad we've had this discussion. I started this a little bit last year when we brought in the Sheboygan County Board Chairman to talk about it. No decision was made that night. It was just informational. So this is a good discussion. And along those lines, with that appointment to that committee for the WCA, I'll be attending the legislative exchange that week, the 2 nights as well. So I will be talking with other supervisors and county executives, administrators who do have the sales tax, and I will be requesting them to send myself and or the finance committee, which I'll gladly share with the county board, of course, as well, their ordinances in regards to sales taxes. I think that's one of the things that's a troubling thing, is whether things can be allocated to certain places and whatnot, and then we'll just, the book's already, the wheel's already been invented. If it go down this route, there's templates out there and things to look at, so we'll keep going on. So I applaud not just the finance committee, the entire county board, whether you're pro, con, against it, in the middle, whatever. I'm glad we're having this discussion. It was time to have it, so continue on. Highway Committee, Supervisor Giroux is the chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No committee report, but on another good job of snow removal on our county roads. I drive back and forth to Green Bay to work every day and do a lot of driving during the day around northeastern Wisconsin. And whenever we get one of these snow events, my wife always says, "Why don't you work from home today?" And I tell her, the roads are going to be clean. And I get out on the roads and they're clean. So I haven't had a snow day yet this year. So job well done. Thank you. That concludes my comments.
Willingly no snow day, that's good. But yes, I wholeheartedly agree with Supervisor Giroux, and especially, sometimes it's a lucky shake too, but today's snowstorm, after the plows went through and got everything cleaned, not just on the highways, but in the cities as well, as you noticed, most of with the salt, a lot of the streets have been right down to bare pavement again, so that's incredible. So great job all around from everybody. Any questions for Supervisor Giroux? Thank you very much. Human Services Board, Supervisor Henriksen is the chair.
No report, Mr. Chairman. Our next meeting will be Thursday, the 25th at 4:45.
Any questions for Supervisor Henriksen? Thank you very much. Land Conservation Committee and Natural Resource Education Committee, Supervisor Wagner is the chair.
No report on either committee. However, the meeting for the land conservation will be this week, Thursday, the 18th, at the county office complex starting at 4:30. The natural resource and education meeting will be February 8th at 4:30 and also at the county complex. Thank you.
Any questions for Supervisor Wagner? Thank you very much. Personnel Committee, Supervisor Benke is the chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We did not meet in January as well. Our next meeting will be February 6th at 4:45. That's all I have.
Any questions for Supervisor Benke? Thank you very much. Planning and Park Commission, Supervisor Zimmer will be giving the report tonight.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have no report other than to mention our next meeting, which will be Monday, the 22nd of January at 4 p.m. Thank you.
Any questions for Supervisor Zimmer? Thank you very much. Public Safety Committee, Supervisor Henriksen is the chair.
No report, Mr. Chairman.
Any questions? Thank you very much. Public Works Committee, Supervisor Weiss is the chair.
Thank you, Chairman Bry. We met January 10th at UW Manitowoc, of which we began our meeting with a tour of the remodel. It basically is the first major transformation since 1969 when the building was built. They have done a wonderful job. They're still got a little bit of stuff to do yet, but they're hoping to have the bulk of that done by first class the 22nd of January. So they'll have a little bit of work after that, but most of it they should have done. After that, we reviewed the solid waste programs. We talked about drug collection for 2017. The county collected 1,780 pounds of pharmaceuticals for disposal. We approved the pilot program for year-round tire collection, and we'll review the results of that after 1 year. We had two pay requests. The first one was for UW Manitowoc in the amount of $366,101.80. And the second one was for the law enforcement direct digital control replacement in the amount of $14,960. We heard about the county's phone upgrade. That should be completed by May 1st. And on the Expo Dairy Cattle Barn design and build, we did listen and heard that the Expo Board did recommend Valley Building Systems, which we did approve, along with two options. The first option is grooving the concrete in the wash rack area for the cows, so anti-slip purpose. And the second one is lean-to roofs over the wash rack area to prevent rainwater and that kind of stuff from getting into the drainage water from the wash. So both of those added about another, $37,000. So the total that we awarded the bid for was $541,290. And our next meeting would be February 14th, and that would conclude my report, Mr. Chairman.
Any questions for Supervisor Weiss? Thank you very much. Safety net account, oh, I'm sorry, I apologize. Supervisor Giroux, where are you? There you go. All right, please.
Tag on to that meeting out at UW Manitowoc. If you want to see $5 million of county money, $1.5 million of state money, and several $100,000 of UW Foundation money well spent, go out there and look at it. It's fabulous. I went to school out there, and up until we did this, that place looked exactly the same as when I was back there in 71, 72, 73, that era and stuff.
I think it was here in 1871.
Right. And but where we used to sit is library now and work carols. It's great. The new floors, bathrooms, the science labs, the physics labs, the chem labs, all of those, they did just a marvelous job. I mean, everybody that was there, I think, was pretty blown away. So if you get an opportunity, go out there and take a look at it. Any student would be proud to go out there. And now that it's under UWGB again, they're going to have like a 4-year program offerings that people will come down from here. You go up there and stuff like that. So they're offering a new mechanical engineering program. They're going to offer a nursing degree in a year, 2 or 3, and it's really a step in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Giroux. Supervisor Dizak, did you want? Okay. Thank you very much for your comments. Anything else, Supervisor Weiss?
Nope, that would be it.
Thank you very much. Safety and Accountability Panel, Supervisor Henriksen is our representative.
report, Mr. Chairman.
Any questions? Thank you very much. Transportation Coordinating Committee, Supervisor Weiss is the chair.
No report, Mr. Chairman.
Any questions? Thank you very much. Other than that, there's nothing else, no announcements, so a motion to adjourn would be in order. Motion by Supervisor Banky, second by Supervisor Dizak. All in favor of the motion say aye. Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a good evening. Have a safe trip home.